How many hours do you spend at work? How many hours did you spend this week? What about this month, this year? I ask because in the UK we spend 84,000 hours at work during our lifetime. Just think about that time. That's a third of our waking hours during adulthood. And yet the sad reality is that for the majority of us, we're not fully engaged and immersed in the work that we do. In fact, global studies of job satisfaction show that the majority of people on this planet aren't energized or engaged by the work that they do. And I just think this is a terrible waste. A waste of people's time, a waste of people's energy, and ultimately just a waste of our human potential. I mean, just imagine what you could achieve if you were able to bring your best ideas, your best self to work each day. As an HR professional, business psychologist, I've spent my entire career trying to find ways to make work better. I want people to thrive rather than simply survive in their jobs. And it was about 6 years ago that I was sat in a classroom at the University of Melbourne at the Centre of Positive Psychology, where I was presented with an idea that I feel can fundamentally change the world of work. The wonderful Dr. Gavin Slempford shared this concept with the class and shared that this had been studied for over 14 years at the time and subject to over 100 academic, rigorous, peer-reviewed studies. These studies had showed positive outcomes when it came to things such as happiness, engagement, fulfillment, and performance. And I was sitting there and listening to this because these were the holy grail of outcomes we want as HR professionals, as business leaders. Yet to my utter amazement, I'd never heard of this idea before. The idea that I was gifted that day, the idea that I want to share with you is job crafting. Job crafting refers to personalising and customising our jobs to make it a better fit to us as individuals. It's a way to bring our passions, our strengths, our interests to the workplace. And there's no one fixed way to job craft. People do this in lots of different ways, but they tend to come from 5 different core motivations. So one's around changing your tasks, your skills, your relationships, your well-being, or connecting to your meaning and purpose of what you do. And I was in a shop in Newcastle where I spotted a badge that I feel perfectly sums up job crafting. The badge had been attached to the sleeve of the jacket, and the badge said, "Tailor me to make me more you." It was advertising the fact that you could tailor the final fit of the jacket around your individual dimensions to make it a better, more comfortable, better looking fit. You weren't changing the fabric or the colour of the jacket, this was fixed, but you were making it more personal to you as an individual. And you can bring this personalised approach, this semi-tailored approach, to the workplace through job crafting. With job crafting, you're not designing your job from scratch, but you are tailoring the final fit around you as an individual. You're changing this by how you think, act and interact within your job. And we can bring this personalised approach to pretty much any and every aspect of our lives, from our cars to our clothes to our cups of coffee. You name it, we can pretty much personalise it these days. And research shows that when we personalise our goods and services, we value them up to twice as much compared with those that we buy off the shelf. And we perform better too using personalised goods and services. And we can bring this performance advantage, this personalisation advantage, to our jobs through job crafting. When we personalise our jobs, we feel more in control of what we do. We have more enjoyment, engagement, and satisfaction. Yet, the sad reality for the majority of us, we seldom have this opportunity. We seldom have this opportunity to personalise our jobs. In fact, if our jobs were an item of clothing, for many of us, there would be a straitjacket, constraining rather than celebrating our strengths and passions and interests. And pretty much ever since I learned about job crafting, I've been exploring, studying, and trying to find ways to bring this to life within organisations and workplaces. I've collected hundreds of stories ranging from CEOs to cabin crew to computer technicians to cleaners. And today I wanted to share with you 3 short stories of people who've brought job crafting to action. So the first story involves Paul, and Paul worked on the help desk at the IT help desk at the University of Melbourne. And Paul attended one of my first ever job crafting workshops. Paul wanted to find ways to volunteer to test new applications and tech before they went live. And he said he wanted to do this for 3 reasons. Firstly, he recognised in terms of the calls he received that people often had problems with new software and new tech. Secondly, he loved the problem solving involved in trying to find bugs in the system. And thirdly, he told me he just loved trying to break things. Excitingly, Paul caught up with me about a month later and told me that not only had his colleagues really appreciated the opportunity for them to test their tech and code before it went live, but his manager had recognised this too. And so testing had become a small but established part of his role. The second story involves Joanna. And Joanna worked at the global bank in marketing communications. As you might imagine, Joanna's role was really demanding. She spent a lot of time doing meetings with people. But in a job crafting session, she explained to me that she didn't spend time connecting with people. She felt that this was missing from her job. So she decided to make a small job crafting goal to once a day spontaneously catch up and meet with one of her teammates. She'd do this by phone, by video chat, or in person if the opportunity presented itself. And Joanne told me that every time she did this, not only did she feel a little bit more in control of her job, but she felt a little bit more in control of her day. And a month later, one of her colleagues actually mentioned to Joanne that she'd valued having more of a chance to see her and connect with her recently. So this change that took Joanna maybe 10 minutes a day was something that actually her colleagues had noticed and she had noticed too. And the third job crafting example I wanted to share with you involves someone I know really well. In fact, it's me. You're watching a kind of job crafting in action right now. Speaking on stages, speaking through screens is not something that I naturally enjoy. It doesn't fill me with energy. In fact, at times I find it really draining and, like today, a bit terrifying. Yet I find the motivation to do this by tapping into the meaning and purpose of doing this. I'm passionate about sharing ideas that I feel can make people's work and by extension their lives better. It really matters to me. And so when I'm struggling with motivation, I tap into my meaning and purpose. I tap into why I'm doing these things. It gives me the confidence and conviction to speak to you today. And these are 3 of literally hundreds of stories I could have shared with you across different industries and professions. And I want you to note from these stories 3 common attributes that I see time and again when I study job crafting in action. The first is that the changes were driven by the individuals. These were changes that individuals wanted to make for themselves in pursuit of making their work better. It wasn't something that was imposed upon them. If you can't force job crafting on people, it has to come from within. The second thing I'd like to note is that the job crafting changes were small. They were tiny, in fact. It would be tempting almost to dismiss them as unimportant or insignificant, but that would be a mistake. In fact, one of the things that I feel gives job crafting its strength is the fact that its simplicity. It's something we can all do. In fact, I believe any person on any job can job craft their role in some way. Another way to think about it, perhaps, is that job crafting gives you great bang for your buck. Small changes to your job can lead to big changes in your energy and enjoyment in terms of the work that you do. And the third thing to note in terms of the job crafting stories is that people did them in different ways. Like people, job crafting comes in lots of different shapes and sizes. So Paul crafts his tasks, Joanne crafts her relationships and her connections with others, and I tapped into the meaning and purpose of my role. And I know what you're thinking. I know you're skeptical, and that's good for me, because if you're skeptical, it means you're listening and engaging with what I'm saying to you. You may be thinking, Rob, there's no way that I will be able to craft my job. There's no way my manager or my leader would allow me to do this. And I get it. A lot of people are frankly afraid of what will happen if they allow people to personalize their roles. I find that leaders may be a little scared about just what might happen. Might there be anarchy? Might there be chaos if people were able to tailor their jobs around their strengths, their passions, their interests? Will it lead to people tearing up their job descriptions or setting fire to their role profiles? Disappointingly, and maybe excitingly, this doesn't happen in practice. I reassure managers, you can reassure your leaders and your managers that this doesn't happen in practice. In fact, research and my experience shows that when people job craft, they do it in positive and responsible and responsive ways. Ways that make a difference not only to the individual, but makes a difference to their colleagues, their team workers, and their customers they serve too. If you're curious about job crafting, my advice is to try it for yourself. One way to do this is through an exercise I call the love and loathe exercise. For this exercise, you'll need 3 things. You'll need some post-it notes, a piece of paper, and a pen. So to start with, on your post-it notes, write down your 10 to 15 key tasks in your job. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rob, I've got thousands of tasks, but trust me, just start with 10 to 15 to start with. Next, get your piece of paper. On the bottom of the page, write a horizontal line, draw a horizontal line, which represents energy in your job. On one side, you want to have the things that drain you of energy that you loathe doing. On the other side of the line are things that give you energy, that fill you up, the things you love doing in your job. In the middle of the page, you want to put a vertical line that represents time. And then you get your post-it notes and plot them on this graph. And there's 2 areas you want to look at that I feel are fertile ground for job crafting. The first are things that you spend a lot of time doing that actually drain your energy. Think about other ways of reframing, changing, or reducing these activities. Or maybe you can change how you think about them in the way that I do when I'm presenting. So I try and think about this not as an opportunity to sweat and feel a little bit embarrassed, but as a way to connect to my meaning and purpose, to share ideas that I hope will make a difference. The other area you want to look at are the things that give you energy, that fill you up. Are there ways to amplify these activities? Are there ways to bring more of this to your work in the way that Paul did and Joanne did through our stories? The secret to job crafting is to start small. Find the tiniest, most positive change you can make to your job, and then just go for it. And there never has been a better, more important time to job craft than now. If the pandemic has taught us anything, is that we need to make every second, every minute, every hour count. Rather than being a cog in the machine, job crafting enables us to make our work an extension of who we are and the values we hold. It's simply a more human way to work. So I hope I've encouraged you to bring the personal touch to your job. And so I end with an invitation for you to place a badge on your job which says, "Tailor me to make me more you." I wonder what positive change you can make. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I wish you all happy crafting.